The day we arrive on this planet and blinking, step into the sun, there is more to see than can ever be seen, more to do than can ever be done. There is far too much to take in here, more to find.
A very warm good afternoon, this fifth day of September, being a Thursday, and welcome to today's special segment. So long on this discourse about book launches and pre-launches, and today we are thrilled to have with us an extraordinary author, Richard Kida Mbindio, who has penned a riveting biography, Fragile to Fierce, a true life story of Father Marino, Gemma, and this inspiring book takes us on a journey all the way from a small town in Italy to the shores of Kenya, and of course recounting a life filled with struggle, faith, and ultimate triumph. And with the official book set to be launched just days away on Saturday, the 7th of September, I think it's just a day away, the author Richard is here with us to share exclusive insights into the making of this compelling biography. And first things first, I get to invite our guest, Richard. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Elizabeth.
Thank you very much for making time for this conversation. And first, congratulations upon compiling this
Thank you very much.
192-page book.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth. I'm very happy to be here. Mm-hmm. And good afternoon to everyone who is watching us.
Yes.
So my name is Richard Kida, mm-hmm. and I'm an author, and I'm also a public relations expert, mm-hmm. with over 14 years in communications. And I was happy to have met Father Marino again, mm-hmm. encountered him again, once again, because we are known to each other since early 2000. Mm-hmm. He was my wedding day, wedding celebration celebrant.
Wow.
So it was a surprise that I found him at Karen Resurrection Gardens, mm-hmm. something I do regularly every year. But this time I went more than twice.
Which year was that?
I go every year.
When he presided over you?
2003.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
So recently, not recently, but when I met him, I was just going for a retreat at Karen Resurrection Gardens, mm-hmm. which I do twice a year. Mm-hmm. But on this day, I added a third one, and I went at 5 o'clock because mm-hmm. I felt a calling to go and pray this particular day, even though I'd already done the retreats mm-hmm. for the year. Mm-hmm. And because it was 5 and they close around 5:30, mm-hmm. I said I'll enter, but I'll go anti-clockwise. There's mm-hmm. a way you're supposed to go, but I went the opposite way. Mm-hmm. That way, if anyone is chasing away people, mm-hmm. I will meet them on the way back, and they'll know I'm inside. Yeah. And that's how we met him. I met him on the way out. Mm-hmm. And then he remembered me and asked me, so what do I do actually all these years? Because mm-hmm. this is many years since the wedding. Yeah. I tell him I am in communication, and because he's very good in Kiswahili. He asked, kwa ufupi, tuambie unafanya nini?
Interesting.
So I told him, mimi ni mtu wa gazeti, in short, na ninaandika vitabu pia.
Ndiyo.
And that's how he said, oh, I would like a book because I have some stories to tell. I just don't know how to do it. So he told me to give him some time. He was traveling. He would be going to Israel for some pilgrimages. And then he would call back. Now, in my world, that is a no. If someone tells you, atakupigia baadaye, it's normally a no. But in this case, it turned out to be a yes, because when he came back, he actually called and he signed up and we went on with business. So that's the history of this encounter.
Oh, great.
But there's a story behind all that.
There's a story behind. Of course, we'll get a snippet of that and we'll dive right in shortly. But before we get more to know more about the author, which is quite paramount, remember, we really value your feedback. We'd like you to weigh in the conversation. Feel free to drop your comments or your question on our number 0717-424-866. You can as well do that on our social media platforms, that is on YouTube and Facebook. Use the hashtag Prelaunch or book launch. And my name is Sasha Elizabeth, or Captain Sasha, and we'll continue the conversation from here. For the person who has not encountered you or interacted with you at a personal level, who is Richard Kida, and is writing something that you nurtured over time as part of your profession, or it just grew as a hobby?
Yeah, so Richard is actually, my first degree is in education. So I'm actually a teacher. I have taught at Strathmore for about 7 years. And then I built my academic portfolio and moved into communication since that time. It's now 14 years. And I really am not a writer in the classical way. I taught myself, I built it as a hobby. So I worked very hard on my hobby since childhood. I would win all the competitions in primary school. My first one was for UNICEF. I remember this children's competition, a composition write-up. And I was the winner. And I
Wow, congratulations.
was constantly just writing. So when I went to high school, I went to Starehe Boys Center. And I was a member of Pele House, which is one of the four day scholar units. Most of the houses are for boarders, but these four are for day scholars, people who come and go. So I was one of those people who come and go. And I was not happy with being called into that school because I had also been called to Strathmore, the high school. But my parents said, no, go to Starehe. Learn the discipline. Go dress in that funny uniform of theirs. Don't worry. 4 years are nothing. Then you come out and do what you want. So I went there with a half-broken heart. But it was for my good, because then I learned new values and they nurtured now this other hobby. Academics continue, but there's still the hobby, the writing part. And for that, I became the editor of the school newspaper. And I think we did a good job. And when we left, now there's a gap in the period between Form 4 and university. It used to be 1.5 years. In that period, I wrote for the newspapers in Kenya as a freelancer. And I was surprised in 1997, my articles were actually published and I have a check waiting in my name, something that never happened before. I used to write and it's just for fun. But for the first time now, we're being paid. So my first check came in 1997 from Nation Media Group. And since then, to date, I continue to write for Nation Media on stories of all types, usually lifestyle, book reviews, culture, anything that I wish to write. But because I run a media farm, my writing is now different. So I have clients from all sides. So sometimes I write in the shadows to guide people.
Great. Thank you very much for that profound introduction. And let's start by the title, the book title. I know it's always a painstaking thing because it guides the rest of the writing. And as a writer, I understand that there is something that really fuels your choice of title. How did you go about what driving force really was behind Fragile to Fierce?
Yes. So it has many meanings. The first meaning is obviously about being delicate, then moving into strength. So in this case, I wanted to portray the client who is Father Marino. His life had a childhood which was fragile. Fragile because he had he was born with some childhood defect, which was eventually cured. And then now he discovered himself. And then he was able to confront the world's needs and world's challenges with confidence. So this shows that transition, fragile to fierce. In fact, we wanted the word between fragile and fierce, fragile to fierce, that's two, to show transition. It was supposed to be golden in color, but we could not find a publisher to do this. Maybe the next editions will show this transition. But the purpose of the title is simply to enamor you to know that you can move from being very delicate, very broken, very weak, to something fierce, strong, and bold. And I think that's what we wanted with the title. Then comes the imagery.
The imagery, yes.
Yeah, the imagery, this was very hard to come up to. In fact, we commissioned more than 5 different artists to give us ideas because we simply, it's not our space. So the first one brought us a lion and a glass. And then we wondered where a lion will ever encounter glass in that format. It's not very common. Another one brought a lion and a flower, and that doesn't feel like the savannah we know. Until this other artist now brought us a small cub, which is frail, weak, and emaciated in a way, standing, facing itself in a river, in a pond, in a dry riverbed or something, with dust blowing behind him. And then the shadow is now this huge, healthy lion, which is very adult-like. And this was really the story we were
ready
after.
to defend himself in the jungle.
Precisely. Almost roaring. It's saying that he's in control. And this felt more like the client's story. And that's why we're very happy with this, and we loved it. And we went for it.
Great. And we would like to know, Richard, this is no ordinary story. Of course, there are so many others who have done biography, but it's unique in its own. What really inspired you to document the life of Father Marino, and how did you come across his story for the first time?
Okay. So this goes back to COVID in 2020. I mentioned that I do public relations. In 2020, there was absolutely no business because no companies are launching. Anybody with an event is not having any event. I have an airline client. Airlines are not flying anymore. So it was a dead period. It was a period of reflection. And then I realized, actually, it is true. We needed to expand our direction and transform ourselves. So I thought to write a book. This is 2020. And it would take 3 years for me to get the clients, because I went pitching to many people. Can we do your book? Archbishop Agnolo, would you like your book written? And then not really, and so many people.
So from the onset, you really had a biography
in
idea
my head.
In my,
Yes, because during the COVID period, I would go every week I would drive to a chapel anywhere in the country and pray. And that prayer was reflective. And I would only drive to regions where there was no barrier. COVID created barriers in our city. We could not go past Naivasha, not past Kajiado. There were limitations.
A lot of confinement.
Yes, this confinement made me blow up in weight, first of all, because I'm doing nothing and I'm used to working hard because I'm just at home. So I decided, let me do something. So I'd hike, walk around or drive somewhere and go to a chapel, a church, wherever it is, and reflect. And because I'm a writer, I used to buy a journal and go write reflections. So in that period, it occurred to me that I need to write someone's book. My book is not yet there. My experiences are shallow, or maybe they're not yet fully embodied. There must be someone whose story I could write. Now, prior to this, I had prayed and told God, allow me to get a particular job. I wanted a particular job. And if you give me this job, I will commission myself for free.
Which is this?
Hold on. This is 2014 now, 10 years before. And I would go and I would offer my services for free to my church's communications team. This is Consolata. And so I joined that church. That church's communication team. And I was writing regularly to the magazine. They have a magazine, Consoling I. So we'd write every month and I would write. So I wrote for a long period until I moved my residence to another location. Then I could no longer go to Consolata. So then I asked myself, maybe because I never kept my part of the promise, now this COVID has hit me this way. Maybe I need to revisit this promise. Maybe I need to check myself out. So let me now reform. Let me readjust that promise and say, to any godly person, I'll write their book. So that is why my list of people included the Archbishop, Philip Agnolo, and others who I went to. And eventually this is the one that came. Yeah, and it took some time.
So when did you get to hear about the story of Father Marino? Did you have a brief prior, or did you have any idea about his life, or until he approached you and requested you to share something about himself, that's when you learned about his story?
Exactly. So I didn't know anything about him. I only knew he was a priest in Consolata Missionaries. That's all. And that he had officiated my wedding. That's all I knew about him. So now when he said he wants his book, I'm a writer, I'll get your story. Once you talk to me, we'll have interviews, we'll do them over time. You just keep your time, and I keep mine, and I'll do the write-up. So he was very, very approachable and very, very cooperative.
Great.
Yes.
Thank you. Now, to especially a perceptive eye, Fragile Sophia speaks volumes. And what do you think, what would you share, or what would you say is the gist or the central message of this book?
Yes, the gist of this book is that God has a plan for every one of us. Every soul that is roaming this earth was created in his image, and God has a plan for that particular person. So no matter what fragility or issues you're encountering, be they financial, academic, or even health-wise, whatever challenge you're facing, it is meant to empower you. It is meant to build you. It's a sort of baptism through fire. And once you have gone through it, you'll be stronger for the next assignment. So God has a role for you, and until you achieve that role, so long as you're on this earth, you're breathing, you're walking, there is something you're still yet to achieve. The day you die, it means you have actually served all that. But some people die early deaths. That is something else, but in general, everyone has a role to play in this world, and you have to find that calling.
Absolutely. And the word of God says, I know the plans that I have for you, So God always has everything laid out, a plan, whatever it is, good or bad, murky or not. It's always a process. You don't just wake up one day and, scribble something. Compiling such a volume, it takes time, and it takes a lot. Could you share briefly what it really took for you? Some say sweat and blood to compile this book.
Yes, so it's true, it takes a lot of sweat and discipline and time. Time management is critical because these are now people of a particular type. They are priests. We are ordinary lay people. We want to write their story. We must, first of all, figure out what is their lifestyle, when are they available, and is this time, how much time do I have? And every time you show up, you must walk out of that with at least some major points, which means you prepare.
Yes.
To prepare means to actually sit down and think for about a week. What questions do you want? What is the story you're trying to drive at? Because he doesn't know about book writing. He has a story in him, but you have to get it out.
Yes,
you have to
the
prod
best
it.
way possible.
Yes, you have to prod it out of him. Tell him to remember this, that, the other. Remember this time when you did this. Because if you don't do that, you'll end up with a book which is all celebratory, with no shadow times, sad times, only the good times. So I could write a book about all the celebrations he ever did, all the good times. But that may not be a good book, because I think a good book should be balanced. Have both good and bad times. Balance it. And I feel sometimes we writers, we tend to, because of social media, we just want the good aspects. We forget to carry forth or bring out all the negative moments. In this book, you'll find that we have found some negative moments in his life about himself or his family maybe, and then brought them out, and then figured out what they meant. Yes.
Oh, great. So is it something you did in phases, or you just had to do the interview at once and then you embarked on the writing itself?
Yeah, so because I had been waiting for this book for a long, long time, I was able to write it very fast. I wrote in a period of 4 months.
Wow.
But interviews were done every week for all those 4 months. And every time I did an interview, I went home and subscribed it. So it was in written format. So I had all this material. Then we had a small break somewhere for about 2 weeks, during which time I compiled half the book. Then we continued, because that helped me build on gaps. When you write, when I wrote, I was able to see some problems and maybe build it a bit stronger, come back with a new dimension. And that, I think, helped me. And then after it was done, after 4 months, we went through the book again and realized there were some terminologies people may not understand. So we created a catalog at the back, an index. So you can go back and check, what does this word really mean?
Oh, wow.
You know, a word like bonga
that's so
points.
Considerate.
Yeah. A word like bonga point sounds very common. We all understand it in Kenya. But to a foreigner, what is bonga?
Bonga, yeah.
So at the back, you can, an explanation. There's some Latin words, explanation. Maybe even some hard phrases, there are some explanations.
Do you speak Latin?
No, I don't. I only speak English, Kiswahili, some German, that's it.
Okay.
And local languages, yeah.
All right, great. So doing all the interviews, preparing interviews, you know, the transcription processes and the writing itself, you know, it's so demanding. At that time, did you have to balance between this and something else, or you just had to focus on that?
Yes, I had to balance because my COVID ended and life returned. And now we are doing events and we are doing other people. We are launching off real estate properties, whatever it is. So those things are still going on. And I have to figure out, and thankfully, Father Marino is a very, he's meticulous and he keeps time and he's also flexible. So if I tell him tomorrow's interview will not happen at 11 a.m., can you move it to 4 p.m.? He's okay. Or how about 6? Even that is fine. So we could adjust as we went. And that was very important and very instrumental in helping us write. Yes.
Thank you for that. Every biographer faces challenges, particularly when telling someone else's story, because you need to be like, to see yourself through their story, or rather to depict their story aptly. What were some of the hurdles that you encountered while writing about Father Marino's life, particularly given his early struggles and priesthood journey?
Some of the struggles come from having him recollect clearly what happened in the childhood. I made him do this about 5 different interviews, because I realized every time we spoke, something else came up. And that meant there was still a lot in the reservoir. So by having this repeated question, the same question again, what do you remember about your childhood? This time when you went to this place, Kipalapala in Tanzania, do you remember anything special? What were the days like? So these memories are somehow fading in our clients, in Father Marino. But if you ask them severally, he remembers something. And that becomes the story. So that is one challenge. Another challenge was I was doing a project in Tatu City, the other side of town, and he's in Karen Resurrection, this other corner. And sometimes it's not easy running this way, that way, because Resurrection Gardens is, first of all, off the road, not just on the side of the road. It's far in there. So you think you have arrived, but you haven't. And we are also going through the rainy season. We had all these floods in Nairobi. And the road was cut somewhere in Karen. And you could not quite say what time you're arriving. Yet he needs you to be on time and all this needs to be correct. So because he's flexible, because he's understanding, that was something we jumped over quite easily. Another thing is that he seems to have had in his mind when the book could be out. I had 4 months in my head by Christmas. But he had ideas that it would go on up to September. So he started last year, September, and by Christmas it was ready. But we had all this other time to refine it.
All right.
So we spent a lot of time.
The process of
fine-tuning,
proofreading
yes.
and improving on all that. Great. My director says we need to take a break, but we're getting into the heart of this remarkable story with Richard Kida, author of Fragile to Fierce. When we come back, we'll dive deeper into, of course, the life lessons and the upcoming official launch this Saturday and what makes this biography so compelling. So stay with us. Welcome back, and we are glad that you're still keeping tabs with us here on Capuchin Television on this special segment of a pre-launch of the book Fragile to Fierce, and we are here with the author Richard Kida discussing his latest biography and, of course, a captivating journey of faith, resilience, and the deep love of one man for both his faith and Kenya. So let's pick it up from where we left it. And welcome back to the second session.
Thank you.
David Bagren says he's following. Where are you following us from, David? We have Fifi Emush. She's also tuned in. If you have any questions regarding this book or the upcoming official launch on Saturday, feel free to drop your questions, and then we'll get Richard to respond to them as and when the time allows. Great. So you mentioned earlier, offline, I believe, that Father Marino came to Kenya when he was 29. He spent 60 years as a priest in the country. Can you tell us about his connection to the country and how Kenya shaped the man that he became, symbolically depicted in this book as Fragile to Fierce?
Okay, so he came to Kenya at age 29 and has served as a priest cumulatively 30 years because he came as a seminarian and he was first posted to Alamano, I believe it's somewhere around here, where he stayed. He didn't even know any language that you could comprehend as locals here. He only knew Italian. So he had to learn Kiswahili and English. So he had a tutor. So once he did that, then he was posted to somewhere in northern Kenya. This is Maralal, Wamba, that area, where he served. But in between that, there's a period when he was in Tanzania where he served as a seminarian again, learning all the ropes and even learning Kiswahili itself. Then he has been in Kenya, serving not just Nairobi area. In fact, Nairobi is the last station. He first went to Wamba, which is in northern Kenya. Then he was later on in Marsabit. Then he came to Nairobi, to Consolata, where he served 9 years. Then he went to Italy, to his former place of birth, where he served briefly. Then he went to the UK, to Kent, where he went and did a sabbatical, where he learned psychology. This helped him actually think differently. I think this is where I come in. Because by learning how to review life, then he saw the need in future to record his life, if only to help other faithfuls maybe see that life is not one-dimensional. There are many factors that are helping you, and therefore see it differently. Maybe empower, help you grow. So that is when he went to the UK. Then he came back to Kenya, and finally came to Karen Resurrection Gardens, where he's also being about 9 years. So that's his lifespan around here. You notice most of it is Kenya. All those regions were just a few months.
That explains why he can even speak Swahili.
Thoroughly.
Willy-nilly.
Even better than some of us.
Yes. Oh, wow. Would love to interact with him sometime, someday. Having written his biography, how has Father Marino's story impacted your life as an individual? Did it in some way change or reinforce the beliefs that you held before?
Writing this book is actually, in a way, a reflection of myself.
How so?
Yes, because as he was talking, I could see some challenges in my own life and help me see them differently. So if you remember, the gist is to say that whatever challenge you're going through, you're supposed to go through it because there's still another space waiting for you. There's still another sphere. If you read the book, you'll find that he was a priest in many locations. And each of those locations had challenges, whether they're administrative, in some too dry, too dusty. He doesn't say this, but I know some of these areas, when you think of Samburu area, what do you think of? A dry, dusty dust pan.
Exactly.
With a few goats bleating in the distance. An outwashed landscape. So what is going on there? You have just come from a first world country. Now this is your calling. He came from an area where it was all green like Karen in Martina Franca in Italy. This is a modern place with a seafront. Now you're thrown into a desert. Samburu is a desert for all descriptions. For all intents and purposes, that's a dry land. It's part of the Asal landscape, we call it here. And that's where you are now. So this is a contrast to what you are used to. And now this is your place of calling. So you might ask yourself, is this really my space? But you should not ask such a question. You should ask the question, if it's not my space, then whose is it?
Whose is it, and what is my purpose?
Yes.
What's God's purpose of bringing me here?
Why am I here? There must be a reason.
Yes.
So find it. Once you found it and you've served it, you'll just find yourself miraculously being taken to the next place because you've served the purpose. That's what I believe. And by hearing that from him, it also taught me a few things. That, whatever you're happening is just for then. Even the world has 4 seasons. There's autumn, there's summer, there's winter.
It has to pave way for another season. And of course, that is not debatable.
Not at all.
Great. So this is a deeply spiritual and personal story as well. But it seems to have to speak something to the universe, like to have some kind of universal appeal. What do you think, according to you as the author, does this book speak the most to, and why?
I think it speaks to the general population. People might think it's a Catholic book. It's not.
Yes,
it's written in such a way that
it chronicles the life of a Catholic priest.
It might be, I took deliberate effort to keep it away from that assumption. First of all, it's under the genre of biography, which you'll see someone saying, Professor Father Lawrence said it's one of only about 3 ever written about priests. Most priests do not write books. I hope more priests and more bishops can write their book stories, because there's a story to be told. And then when it's written, it's not just for Catholics. It should be universal in approach, because the values we have, you know, kindness, gentility, discipline, all this, they are shared by other religions. And anybody of good standing will understand that, in fact, this is not just him, it's also about me. People could be going through challenges. We all know COVID decimated people's lives. It brought challenges to some others. They even lost their family members. So these losses, that leads to bereavement. That's a sorrow, that's a loss. How do you go through it? And why must you persevere? Why must you see the need to persevere?
So in essence, anyone from other Christian denominations or even other religions like Muslims can read this book.
Yes.
What is your target exactly?
Okay, the original target was the Christian community, anybody who loves God and wants to understand more about their lives and maybe figure out a way to, you know, survive through life and build their faith. That was the target. However, it is also legible to anybody who simply likes to follow other people's lives and is tired of fiction and is tired of social media and its fakeness and hypocrisy. There's a lot of hypocrisy on social media because people put only their best look, their best leg. They don't tell us the backstory. How did you buy that? The best. How did you end up with this? You know, tell us what happened, the challenge. So this book brings out the authentic expression of a life of Father Marino, not me. Father Marino. Father Marino. Yes.
But somehow touches on some things that you resonate with,
yes,
some aspects of life.
Yes.
And is there any moments or anecdotes from Father Marino's life that particularly touched you or stood out while you were doing this writing?
Yes, there's one thing I will carry all my days. While doing the book cover, we encountered some challenges. You know, some artists give you problems. So I wondered, why can't you just make noise? Can we even sue this person for not delivering? You know, and he tells you, no, it's not a problem. Just get another one. In fact, we already have the design. We can always alter it. So if he's running away or staying away, it's okay. So that's a skill I don't have. I didn't have at that point because I think we have also become a bit reckless or impatient. We want instant solutions. We want perfection today, not tomorrow. So being with him has taught me patience. Remember, the book ended last year, December. This is August, September again.
September. We just
a whole
have
9 months.
Yeah, just two months away from December, right?
Yes, the year is over. So imagine a whole 9 months. This book was just there. So this is patience being taught to me. I would have been happy if it was out in January. But no, we are not ready. This book needs to be reread, recaptured again. Actually, this is the 7th edition of our own. Because we would re-edit, look at it again after some time, finally publish it, keep it in a store for 2 months, stuff like this.
Yeah, and of course you wouldn't want to roll out something that is half-baked, just haphazardly done because you want it to be out there in the market, right?
You're in a rush to do something. No.
Great. So, because this is something that will last on for generations to come. And of course, there are people who will refer to it. Those who try to build on, those people who like to be biographers in future and so forth. And let's briefly speak about the planned official launch on Saturday. As we head towards this official launch, what do you hope readers will take? What should they expect? And who is invited on this day?
So we've invited everybody who wishes to come to Consolata Shrine Alamano Hall on Saturday the 7th at 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. It's a very simple affair. We want to just introduce the book to everyone because some people already have read this book, but the general population is now welcome to read the book and get their copies. The intention is so that we can now reveal some of the content, maybe even graphically express it. We'll have a good sound bites. We don't want to reveal too much. We'll have leadership of the church attending, some people who are friends of ours will be there talking. I myself, people who've read the book will read passages that impressed them. So we have invited a few people. Another thing I forgot to mention is that the book does have a segment for reflection. So after every chapter, there are some reflections. I did this because Karen Resurrection Gardens is a retreat location, and when people go there, they're actually going to pray, meditate. So it was important that we meditate after every chapter, and then come up with some anecdotes or some footnotes that help you even understand the chapter a bit more.
Are the reflections done by different people?
No, by myself.
Okay.
Oh, that's the me. So I was able to get quotes from the Bible that actually buffer or support what I've written earlier. So at the end of every of this chapter, you find that. So that we have some people who will pour into that. We've also invited, or rather received, a group, a choir that will come and sing some of these renditions. And we also have a violinist who has offered to play something. It's going to be a marvelous thing. I think people will enjoy, those who come. Those who don't come will get it on YouTube. We'll help, we'll supply it there. Yes.
Great. It seems it's going to be a very eventful and captivating launch of a book. So all these preparations, did you do it single-handedly, or you are, I think you are here with someone to share with us a little bit about the publisher and the team that took part in the entire process of coming up with this book?
Coming up with a book is not really ever a single person's affair, because if it were, the book would be, most of the time would be illegible, because people don't think collectively. You become individualized, like a PhD holder. You think only of one narrow aspect, so you can produce a lot of information about an aspect. So it helps to have people who view the book, read it, give you a comment. That comment helps you improve the book. So I shared the book way before it was published to several people at the editing stage, so that we could get some ways to improve it. And we did receive a lot of feedback. I think it's in the book, you'll read. And some of that feedback was very helpful. And I think it has helped produce the book. That's one. So we reached out to people I've taught, for example, at Strathmore and beyond. They wrote something. Editors at Nation Media Group and other places, they wrote, they also edited. I also reached out to my former teachers, colleagues of Father Marino everywhere, as many people as you could get. Parish Council of Consolata, former chair lady, Madam Phyllis Kimbo wrote something. So all those comments helped refine or distill what finally came out. So yes, it's a collective effort. Then when it came to the publisher, we also found a publisher who understood us. The same publisher is very, uses the services of, I think St. Paulines are very good, and they use the same publisher. So this particular publisher is very familiar with what we are trying to commute to the people. And they were able to advise us on several elements, including elements to do with the color of the paper, of the book, the tone of the cover, what grams, all this information was helped because we were advised by the professionals. We don't know everything. Same thing for the launch. For the launch, fortunately, Goldfish, my farm, does a lot of events. So we do have people who can advise us, tell us, do this way, don't attempt this. It's only 3 hours, don't try all this. You know, 3 hours sounds like a lot.
Yeah, it sounds like
it's
a long period of
time,
but it's a very short time. Yeah, thank you very much. And now it's very important also to cast into the future a little bit. After this remarkable story, biography, should we expect something from you in the nearby future, or is this the culmination of your personal project for you?
This, I don't think, is the end of my life. Life continues. I hope to get another priest or archbishop who wants his story told. I really wish to get one. I'm also in the process of finishing another book. I don't want to reveal its details, but it's about the sporting world.
Something in the oven?
Yes, something in the oven. That will be out in June next year. But But life continues. As far as this book continues, we will translate it into very many languages, to Italian, to German, to Kiswahili, to even local languages. You should be able to get an audio version in a few months for every of those languages. And many other aspects, maybe even a children's book. We have many ideas floating. But this is not the end. This is the beginning.
Great. As you prepare to set forth this in the market, which usually is done during the launch, do we already have it rolled out in some of the stores? If somebody needs a copy, how do they go about acquiring one? And how much should they prepare themselves to get a copy?
Yes, so this book is available in stores already. It's in Nuria online store. It's also available at Textbook Center, Catholic Bookshop, the Resurrection Gardens. There's a bookshop there. You can get this book in as many places. Even Textbook Center, I think now will start rolling across the country. So it's everywhere, even Prestige Bookshop. There's a whole, if you just Google it, you'll get it. So it's available already, and we've been having sales happening. The book is also available online at nuriastores.co.ke, nuriabookstore.co.ke, and will be available on our website shortly. Yes.
Thank you. Your parting shot as we close this conversation?
I think is to say, regardless of what you're going through in your life, God has a purpose for it and will make good use of it. Everything has a reason, and it comes to your benefit in the long run. So just go through it with full faith that it's for a good reason. Yes.
Thank you very much, Richard, and we really wish you the very best on Saturday as you'll be launching the book, and even in your subsequent write-ups that you're working on, and also whatever you'll be working on in future. So we really appreciate, and we will be together.
Thank you
I
very
believe
much.
on that day.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
So together, and of course, quite profound insights from Father Marino, Gemma's life, which is chronicled by the author himself here, Richard Kida. For our viewers, Fragile to Fierce is a must-read, especially for those. We continue to inculcate the culture of reading, especially among the young populations. You read, you gain knowledge, and they say knowledge is power. So the official launch, as we have reiterated here, is happening this Saturday, September 7th. So be sure to grab a copy of your own, and of course, immerse yourself in this powerful story of hope and transformation. Thank you for watching, and of course I had a team working behind the scenes, and I wish just to extend my gratitude to Alan and Diva and Willie Mzeki Jana. That's how he calls himself. And then we have on the sound desk Frederick Ocheng, and then visual mixing Johnson Momanyi, and on the transmission desk we had Peter Mwangi. We really appreciate your time and encourage you to attend either physically or virtually this important book launch of Fragile to Fierce, a biography by Richard Kida Mbindio. My name is Captain Sasha. Until next time, goodbye.
The day we we arrive on this planet, and blinking, step into the sun. There is more to see than can ever be seen, more to do than can